What's going on, guys? This is Ryan with RK Outpost, and today, if you can tell by the scenery behind me, we're not going to be talking about Star Wars. We're going to be talking about superheroes. Specifically, one of my favorite superheroes. And what kind of made me want to talk about this was I've been part of a couple conversations. One, I was on a stream, and the question just kind of got brought up randomly and asked to me, who's your favorite superhero? And I hadn't thought about it at all. I haven't thought about that in a while, and the words Nightwing just came out of my mouth. And ever since then, I've been trying to figure out why I said that, like why that was my immediate reaction. I love Barry Allen's Flash. I love Hal Jordan's Green Lantern. I even kind of like Kyle Rayner's Green Lantern. But I like so many of the characters from the DC universe specifically. That's where most of my comic book knowledge comes from, is DC. I watched the MCU just like seemingly everyone else in the world, and I was really into the MCU when it started. Towards the end, I loved Infinity War, but towards the end, everything kind of started seeming the same. So I've kind of got a little MCU fatigue, to be honest. But when it came to the comic books, I was always more driven towards DC. And then after I got asked that question, I've been thinking about it. I heard a discussion where people were talking about different characters that they either their favorite superhero or one that they look up to. And a lot of people said, Batman. A lot of people said Superman. And that kind of clicked something in my head as to one of the reasons I think that I love Nightwing so much. Because in order for me to explain that, I kind of need to talk about those other two guys, Batman and Superman. Now, Batman is a character who, at a very young age, goes through this great tragedy. It's a similar story to a lot of superheroes. But, at a young age, he witnesses his parents be killed by a common criminal in the crime-ridden streets of Gotham. And, Bruce Wayne ends up being this highly obsessive, incredibly rich, focus-driven, highly trained in martial arts and any kind of weaponry, really. But he becomes this person who has this obsession with taking out all the crime in Gotham. And I always looked at Batman as a character who, although he has these rules that he sets for himself, and he's against crime, right? He has these lines, but he's a character who is kind of on the edge. If something had gone a little differently for Batman, you can see a lot of the same traits in Batman that you can see in his villains. If instead of being killed by some common street thug, what if it had been some corporate machination? Would Bruce Wayne then have set all his attention to, bringing down the corporate structure in Gotham? Would Bruce Wayne become someone who is trying to, knock down big corporate buildings or destroy the banking industry or bring down capitalism or something like that? And I can definitely see that happening if something had gone just a little bit different. He has that kind of mentality, that obsessive mentality that he shares with a lot of his, rogues gallery. And then Bruce Wayne, this dude who was at a young age forged himself, into this weapon against crime, sees the same thing happen to Dick Grayson. He has a family tragedy and he loses his family, and Bruce Wayne takes him in not only as his adopted son, but as his sidekick, and he trains him. He becomes Robin. And it seems like throughout the course of their relationship, Bruce is trying very hard to make sure that Dick doesn't become the man that he is. He definitely wants him to be a hero that can be, respected and can do the job necessary and have the commitment and dedication to it. But as a man, he doesn't want that weight of being, the Batman on Dick's shoulders. You can even see that, I think it's like Batman R.I.P. storyline when we thought Batman was dead, when we thought Bruce Wayne was dead. And, he didn't want Dick to pick up the cowl. He did not want him to have to shoulder that responsibility. He thought that Nightwing and Robin could carry it on, and they could be doing what, you know, the Batman used to do. He wanted to retire the Batman. He didn't want Dick to be the Batman. But you see this character with such a dark and difficult life that Bruce Wayne has take in this young Dick Grayson. And Dick Grayson becomes highly trained, just like Batman. He becomes a great detective, just like Batman. He becomes a great leader, just like Batman. You know, leading first the Teen Titans and then the Titans. But he doesn't have the same outlook on life that Batman does. When you look at the way that Dick always kind of has hope in people, even though he's experienced this tragedy, it's very different. And what it reminds me of is Superman. You know, Superman, someone who his tragedy came at an age he didn't even remember. So when he grew up as, I won't say a normal child, but to a loving dual parent home. You know, those traditional, like, good old Midwestern values, if that's what you want to call them. And, you know, he's a kind person. He thinks about everyone. He believes the best in everyone. That's who Superman is. And when you think of the name Nightwing, which after Dick Grayson becomes, if you don't know, I guess I could have said that a little earlier. If you don't know, Dick Grayson, the original Robin, eventually goes on and becomes his own superhero instead of a sidekick. He's Nightwing. And the name Nightwing isn't the first time it's been said in, you know, DC Comics lore. There was an old comic where Superman and his friend Jimmy Olsen end up stuck on Krypton, and they take up this kind of vigilante role to keep the city safe as Nightwing and Flamebird, kind of inspired from like Batman and Robin. But that's where that name comes from. So this Kryptonian vigilante, Superman. And so there's even some of Superman inherently in the name Nightwing. So I think it's a very interesting dichotomy between the two arguably biggest superheroes of all time, Batman and Superman, in Nightwing. And I find him so interesting because he has all of that combat ability that Batman does. He's not quite as highly trained martial artist, but he's more agile, more acrobatic than Batman is. He might not quite be the detective that Batman is, or even Tim Drake, a later Robin, is, but he's still obviously extremely skilled. And you have an interesting thing when one of the things about Batman is he always has his money, but Dick Grayson's not the same way. Dick Grayson, although if he ever asked for anything from Batman, he would get it. Let's not be unclear about that. But in that whole Bloodhaven run, Bloodhaven is a city that's, you know, very close to Gotham in location, but the Bloodhaven run was so cool because it's like you take Batman, but you take away all his money, right? And then you have Nightwing. Nightwing is Batman with no money, basically, in Bloodhaven. So he's working a job as a bartender and barely managing to get by, trying to maintain this social life, but also trying to keep the streets of Bloodhaven clean. And I just think that it's cool to see this character who's such a cool mix of Batman and Superman, and how he deals with crime and his outlook on life. So I know that was a little rambly, but that's, you know, Nightwing is one of my favorite characters. It's tough to explain why, but I do think that's, now that I heard people talking about that, that's what I think it is. He's the best of both Batman and Superman. You know, he has all the cool fighting abilities, and the fact that he doesn't have any powers, right? It's just him. And he's that great leader of the team, you know, the Titans. He's experienced all the tragedy that Batman has, but he still has all the hope that Superman does. I just think that's so cool to have in a character, and some people may think he's a little lame, but I freaking love Nightwing. And he's hot as hell. He's better looking than Bruce Wayne. He gets more tail than Bruce Wayne. That's a cool part of Nightwing too, if you're into reading about that, I guess. But what do you guys think? Do you think Nightwing is one of the best superheroes of all time like I do? Can you connect with him at all? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to my channel, ring that bell for notifications so you know when I'm going live or when I'm posting a video just like this. And if you want to check out any of my links or send me something in my P.O. box, check out the description below. And I will talk to you guys later.